Hey, Shalom, Shalom. It's the brother Abaya Buff from the DC Church coming at you, giving all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakagodash, Yahweh being the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai being whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, Bahashem being in the name, recall me in spirit, Kodash being holy. These are the names and the powers that I come to in order to profess the 100% truth and Lord's will seal the elect's faith. Shenya Kabaga, well, Rakaz, and Kaim Naba'ith, meaning double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS in these times, whom the Heavenly Father had enlisted the 100% truth to. And Shalom wa Barakum Labakan Sha'ala, peace and blessings be upon the elected nation of Israel. And to the men out there that's pushing this word of sincerity and the truth, to you I say Shalom wa Barakum Labakan, peace and blessings be upon you. Now without further ado, Salaki, and my camera's gonna probably mess up a little bit more. I'm trying to keep my camera as stabilized as possible. Lord's will is good in this position. But you know, I really the basis of this video, I'm not sure how long it'll be. It could be short, could be long. 444. I don't want to write this out. Heavenly Father, have mercy on us. The basis of this video is built off the construct of us being tested in different areas in our lives, in which sometimes we don't necessarily know that we need to work on that muscle or that specific characteristic in the truth. Okay. And it's important for us to be put into different scenarios and situations that will challenge us and challenge different character traits within being a man of the Lord. And I kind of put it to you like this. You know, we have different compartmentalized muscles, and working on those other muscles actually enhance the main muscle, or the main muscle that you can see. You know, like the tricep. The reason why it's called a tricep is because it's really three muscles broken, you know, grouped into one. The bicep is two muscles, you know, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, all of these muscles need to be exercised for us to really build stabilized strength, very stabilized strength, okay? Excuse me. Nevertheless, you know, for myself, you know, I know for a fact that something that the Heavenly Father required me to work on during this specific point in time of my life is patience. And the reason why I say that is because, you know, I'm dealing with a situation in a scenario in which I've never dealt with. Well, I can't say never, which I haven't dealt with for the past, I want to say really practically ever since 2020. You know, it's been a very long time since I've dealt with like traffic on a daily basis, because I've always lived relatively close to my job, or, you know, a very, very short commute to my to the job that I work. And the last time I've dealt with, you know, traffic was prior to 2020. You know, and I'm gonna, there's a, you know, a story behind this, and there's a point behind this. But, you know, during the time of 2020, you have most individuals who are at home, and it was only essential workers it was permissible for them to go to work. And the specific position that I work in, you know, I was an essential worker. And you know, when I relay information like that, you know, I really don't care about, you know, being personal or giving personal details. But you got niggas like Vocab Malone, you got demons like Vocab Malone who will legitimately use probably whatever AI function he's using to build a data analysis on you, man. So you gotta be real careful and real subtle about what you say, on how much information you give, because these devils are definitely gonna use it to their advantage. But nevertheless, whenever that time comes, we're ready. Fuck it. Excuse my vulgarity also. Nevertheless, with that being said, the position that I worked, you know, I didn't necessarily have to deal with traffic. And during the time of 2020, it was nobody on the road. So it was a good time. It was a good time to just, you know, get to work in not even 30 minutes, you know, opposed to what it is now, which is 1 hour and 9. And you know, I didn't really have to deal with those issues. Nevertheless, also dealing with, you know, my finances were good at that time too, because during the time of COVID, hold on, let me pull this down, because police next to us. Actually, I should probably just keep it right here. But give me 1 second. Let them pass. Remember a long time ago, the Ra'ash Prashad, he was like, I see the pig squatting. That was funny. That was a long ass time ago. Nevertheless, you know, and on top of that, my finances were really, really good at that time, especially during COVID, because, you know, everything was cheap. Everything was rather cheap. You know, gas was super cheap. So, you know, I was saving a lot of money during that specific point in time on commuting. But the main point was, you know, not dealing with traffic. And if brothers don't think that traffic is a form of hell, to be honest with you, kudos to you. But dealing with a commute to and fro to work really kind of furthers the expression of slavery. You know, because we know, we joke and we say, you know, we call it the plantation where we work. Although it's not us physically picking cotton, you know, metaphorically we are, because we're building up a corporation that we don't own, you know, and the scriptures even talk about how we gather much. I got to bring that up. I forgot where it's at specifically. It's in the Old Testament. We just brought it out yesterday too. Give me 1 second. Yeah, this is Haggai chapter 1 verse 6. It says, ye have sown much and bring in little. Ye eat, but ye have not enough. Ye drink, and ye are not filled with drink. Okay, but the point is that it says we have sown much and bring in little. Okay, and that's essentially why we call our place of working, or where we work, the plantation, because, you know, there's no fair share within that. A call Loyim La Yabashmal Shahx, that's, you know, the Heavenly Father allows us to be a part of Habakan Shiasha Allah, that's 144. And despite that, we're also very much still slaves, you know. If you go to the logistics of what a social security number is, you know, there's a lot of factors that prove that we are slaves. Never the absolute less, right? The point that I was getting at is that, you know, I haven't dealt with traffic in a very long time. So now being put, especially the first week, oh my God, first week being put back in a situation where, you know, I'm having to drive an hour to and fro going to work. It just makes my day feel, my work day feel a lot longer, because that time that I would have to myself, just, you know, taking not even 10 minutes to get home and to work, and even the convenience of during my lunch break, going to work, going back home to make food, you know, or whatever it is that I wanted to do going home. It just made my life a lot more difficult, and it put me in a position to where, you know, I'm dealing with different conditions, because there's a different muscle within my character that is being exercised. And our spiritual muscles are being exercised through the trials and tribulations in which we undergo. All right? And some things are not always going to, you know, exercise your financial stability. You know, some things are going to be exercised within your patience. Some things are going to be exercised within your emotions. Some things are going to be exercised within your actual physical health. You know, there may be things that you have to do that are physically straining, and it's a necessity for you to do it, because it's not like, you know, and given the fact that I work an early work schedule, I mean, it's inevitable that I'm going to face, traffic. But I'm saying all this to say that, I was thinking about this, and I was like, damn, because I'm trying to get everything situated to move back to where I live at. But, there's a lot of underlying factors as to why, that decision has to be made more strategically. I was thinking about it. I was like, damn, I really don't want to deal with this for the next couple of months. And I was thinking to myself, and I was like, man, like I was moping and doping. And then the spirit hit me. And when the spirit hit me, I was just like, man, fuck it. That's what the fuck if that's what I got to do, I'm going to do it. I'm a man up about that shit, because I'm not going to ask the Lord to just, Lord, can you please, can you get me out of this situation? Nah, we don't ask the Lord to get us out of the situation. We ask the Lord for the strength to endure. That's what real strength is. The strength of endurance through a misfortunate situation, You got to say, bro, there's a saying in the world where they be like, fuck it, we ball. Meaning like, fuck it, I just deal with the conditions and what comes with it. People usually say that to make a bad decision, but, in this case, it's like, fuck it, bro, this is what we got to do. I got to deal with it. And funny enough, anytime you gather that mindset, and I speak for myself, anytime I've garnered that mindset and I said that to myself, the Lord always delivered me shortly after. But the fact of the matter is that the acceptance of the conditions and the comfort, growing a callous toward it, you become more bulletproof, essentially. You're like, man, fuck it, I got to deal with that. That's what I'm gonna do. It is what it is. Well, you just accept it. That means that you've grown in the mind toward the situations in which you've encountered. And so, like, I didn't have any precepts lined up, but nevertheless, that shows absolute growth, and I'm gonna actually look that up real quick. Second argument. Yeah, man, but it's a blessing to have the mindset, to have adapted the mindset. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. 1 second. I'm in traffic. It ain't the safest practice to be reading in traffic, but it is what it is. You know what I mean? Nevertheless, Hebrews chapter 12. Really, this whole excerpt right here, Hebrews chapter 12 verse 6, it says, for whom the Lord loveth he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son he receiveth. So a form of chastisement, is because the thing is, you gotta understand, time is very precious. And I talked about this yesterday when we were out at camp. Time is very precious, and we want to have as much personal time as possible so that we could do the things that we feel we need to do and want to do with our own time. Now, this is very vital because a lot of our time as a slave is dedicated toward being a slave. 40 hours of your week inevitably is going to your job. And then you got to spend probably another 40 hours a week to sleep. That's 180. And I think there's only like 100 and, don't quote me. It might be like, let me see something real quick. 24 times 7. I can't do the quick math in my head, although I used to be really good at math. All right, so we do 24 times 7 equals 168, right? So 168 minus 40, that goes to work, right? So you got 120 hours. And then minus another, because you got to do 8 times 7. Well, we just say just for the work week, right? 40 minus another 40 minus another, we'll say 16, right? It's 56. So you got 72 hours of free time. And then you gotta at least spend, I want to say, no less than 5 hours, and I wouldn't even say that. Really no less than 5 hours toward the truth, right? So 72 minus 5. That gives you 67 hours. Now, just think about this. You gotta spend an hour going to work and an hour coming back from work, okay? That's what? Two a day. So 2 times 5 is 10. So minus 10. That leaves you with 57 hours a week of quote-unquote free time. And then during that time, you got to cook, you got to clean, you got to maintain, you got to do all the other logistical shit. So really, you only getting like, not even 20 hours to yourself. But that's the conditions of the battle that we're in, all right? And again, I said all this to say that's why, dealing with different situations that draw patience is a trial. It is a trial, Some men cool with it. You cool with being in traffic. I'm not. I feel like it's a waste of time. I'd rather not be driving. I'd rather just live in a place that's closer to my job, so the commute is short. But the fact of the matter is that that's a situation in which the Heavenly Father is utilizing to grow a character, a form of character in yourself. Now, if you have that introspective view, that will allow you to deal with things more amicably, more peaceably, okay? Because these people out here, they're suffering for no fucking reason. That's why everybody's ready to crash out. These individuals are ready to crash out because they have no backing for their suffering. There's no pension for their suffering. For us, being the fact that we are suffering, we're going to receive a reward for everything that we're going through. And the thing is, we don't look at these situations like, I'm just dealing with this just to deal with it. No, we know that these situations are placed in front of us because the Heavenly Father is allowing us to learn something from it. It's not just for no reason. Our lives aren't just aimless. We're not as though them that beateth the air. You know what I mean? In other words, what Paul said, we're actually striving for our masteries. So being the fact that we're striving for our masteries, the Heavenly Father is testing us in different ways. And you got to know it's a test, and you got to have that mindset to understand, okay, this happened because Satan, and to be real with you, this situation that I'm in right now was inevitable. I didn't really have a choice but to be in this situation. So with that knowledge, knowing this information, that also gives me security and gives me a layer of solace within knowing that, okay, this is how the Lord intended it to be. And if the Lord intended it to be this way, that means that there's something I have to gather from this situation. Okay? So I want to get back to Hebrews the 12th chapter, verse 6. It says, oops, probably get back over. It's like y'all can nose be itching. It says, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son. There we go. It's a lot. It says, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. Okay? And it says, if ye endure, again, if ye endure chastening, which is true strength, because this world likes to showcast strength as something that's physical, which it is. That's one aspect of it. That's the first layer. But the highest level of strength is internal strength. Okay? Because the scriptures tell you about those mighty men that's going to be crying in that day bitterly. Okay? And it says, if ye endure chastening, the Heavenly Father dealeth with you as with sons. Okay? And it says, for what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? All right? And you got to ask yourself that question. If you're not going through a trial, if you're not going through a tribulation, if you're not going through some sort of adversity, that means the Heavenly Father is not dealing with you. And the people, the individuals in this world, they look at us as if like we're being chastised. We're just aimlessly being fucked up. You know, and just all out depressive things happen to us just for no reason. No, these things happen to us because the scriptures say in Acts chapter 14, verse 22, that through much tribulation shall we enter into the kingdom of heaven. Okay? What we're about to receive is no comparison to what we're going through. So we have to keep an optimistic mindset toward things that we're undergoing, and knowing that really there's no comparison. Keep the kingdom of heaven in the front of your mind. And it doesn't matter how small you think the situation is, it is big. You know, because our life is divine. Our path is divine. You know, you have to value yourself and the things that you're going through. And the things that you're going through, and understand and know that your life is valuable to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shema Shai. All right? And that's part of the reason why he's allowing these certain situations to transpire. Nevertheless, it says, verse 8, but if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye are ye bastards and not sons. Okay? And I refuse to be a bastard, man. I refuse to live like a bastard, be a bastard, or have a reputation as a bastard. You know? I don't want Rentazah. You know, I care about my life. I care about the Heavenly Father. I care about salvation. That's what I truly desire. That's what I live for. You know? But all of those things have an origin. And those origins start with these small situations, or even big situations that we're undergoing, being in this flesh. All right? Which manifest into bigger. Because really, if we saw the spiritual merits that we get day by day of going through a day successfully in the spirit and power of Yahweh Shema Shai, and retaining our spirit, retaining our the truth, and enduring through these hardships, really, if we could see the spiritual merit, bro, we'd be happy, man. Because although we can't see it physically, we can feel it spiritually. All right? And only a spiritual man will understand that statement. Nevertheless, it says, furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which have corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much more be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? Okay? So the things that the Heavenly Father has set up for us are far more better. All right? And we have to believe that, and we have to love that factor. Okay? It says, now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous, but grievous. Nevertheless, afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruits of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. And that's really the main point, is that these aspects in our lives are really exercising different muscles in your body, in your spiritual body, that are causing you to have strength in areas that need to be strengthened. Okay, like I'll give you another example. People don't know that if they're having back problems, that you can actually exercise your back muscle. You can exercise your spine. You know, there's ways for you to do that. And there's actually a workout that I used to do to exercise my lower back. You know, because that's typically where a lot of your problems come from. Especially if you're eating very sugary foods, it calcifies the tendons and if I'm saying this correctly, I'm not into, you know, botany, if I think that's the correct term, or the anatomy of human. Nevertheless, I don't know the specified information behind it, but I do know that, you know, if you eat certain foods, certain sugary foods, or even very sodium-filled foods, it can calcify the tendons within your spine, you know, which is not good. So therefore, it's putting more pressure on the bone, and it just causes more damage to your spinal cord. You know, which your spinal cord is the main vertebrae in your body. You know, and that's why it needs to be exercised. Because, you know, a lot of times, especially now, a lot of the jobs that Jake have, if you're not working construction, you know, you practically probably sitting on your fucking ass for 8 hours of the day. You know, a vast majority of that 8 hours, you're sitting on your ass doing work. You know, so we have to make sure that we're up, getting active, and working out different parts of our body to you know, keep strength in our body. You know, physically and spiritually, primarily spiritually though. All right. But that's really all I wanted to say. You know, you got to have a mindset where you like, fuck it, I accept it, Lord. If this is what you want me to go through, I'm going through it, and I'm going to deal with it, because I'm a fucking man. All right, excuse my vulgarity, but, you know, primarily we're men. In the first quarter of things. You know, when I wake up, I see a man in the mirror, and primarily I see a man in the Lord. So, you know, you got to have that mentality and muscle through all of these situations and circumstances in which we're undergoing, you know. But that's really the main point with that. I give all praise, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shah, Bahashim, Kalkadash, Shanya Kabaga, Wala Rakaza, Klayuna, Ba'aitu, Shalom, Barak, Mabukan, Shia, Sha'ala. Until next time, I say Shalom.